Hey everybody, it's X Bethelot. I haven't done a video in quite some time. The reason I'm doing this is just to provide some brief commentary on apparently there was a June annual meeting, and there's been some changes to the Jehovah's Witness doctrine, especially on recording of field service reports. So this is something that I thought I would highlight and bring to people's attention. I'm going to be also referencing the JW Facts, their latest. Let me pull that up here. There we go. So apparently this was a recent, not too long ago, Watchtower. And I'm going to use this and kind of tie it into what's just happening right here in the month of June, or was just released. Article here is entitled, "Do You Trust in Jehovah's Way of Doing Things?" And they reference in the article having faith in Jehovah also means having faith in his representatives. Okay, so they're talking specifically about the governing body, and they reference some scriptures here, Matthew 24:45, speaking of the faithful and discreet slave during the first century, Acts 16:4 and 5, where there's examples of directions being given to the congregations during that time. And so the Watchtower comments here, this is from February 2022, that during the Great Tribulation, we may receive instructions that seem strange, impractical, or illogical. Definitely illogical. Of course, Jehovah will not speak to us personally. He will likely provide direction through his anointed representatives. That will hardly be the time to second guess the direction or to view it with skepticism. So there you go. You can't communicate with God directly. You got to go through his representatives, right? Which are the faithful slave, which of course they've admitted have no spiritual direction. They are not spirit anointed people. They've outwardly said that in articles, that they do not have the ability to predict things. They have no ability. They do not have divine direction, and yet they expect you to trust their direction. It's completely ridiculous. So what's happening now is you've got right now they're, because basically many Jehovah's Witnesses are not going in field service anymore, and if they do, they're certainly not going door to door. If they do, they're doing cart witnessing, which is basically just standing by a cart. And if someone approaches the cart requesting literature, they'll talk to them. But for the most part, they just stand there. I live in Tampa, Florida. I've lived in the last 15 years in homes that are easily accessible. I don't live in gated communities. In the past, you could walk right up to my front door, and I think in the last 15 years, maybe one time there was a witness that came to my door in the last 15 years. It's just not happening anymore. The door-to-door witnessing is not happening, and they know it. They realize it. They are now making the decision. This was just announced. New light was just announced that you no longer have to record your time. You just have to check a box that says, yeah, I went out in field service. So I feel bad for all, obviously I grew up in the 1980s, really the height of the Jehovah's Witness cult was definitely in the 1980s, 1990s. Some might say, well, it was really prior to 1975 because they were trying to predict this. But population wise, if you look at the number of Jehovah's Witnesses, it was really in the 80s and 90s is when you had the biggest increase of people that were coming into the cult. Now it's on the massive decline. People are waking up left and right. And it's because of the freedom of information, right? The internet, the ability to decipher for yourself information, and not just hearing the information from um, the elders or the governing body, which of course they're only going to tell you the way they see things. They're not going to give you. There's no criticism allowed, right? So all the hours and hours and hours of field service, especially pioneers. I remember the pioneers had to put in, what was it, 60 hours a month at least. I think at one time it was 80 hours. I remember I was an auxiliary pioneer for a while. I think I had to do 40 or 50 hours a month in field service. So a lot of time, and a lot of it was just ticking. You spent a lot of time just marking down time that really wasn't there. You're not talking to people, 7, 8 hours a day, right? 5 hours a day. You're not talking to people that length of time. Most of it is maybe 20 minutes you're talking to somebody. Most of the time it's rejection, right? If you're going door to door, none of that is in existence anymore. It's literally cart witnessing, or you can just say that, oh yeah, I talked to somebody at work about the truth, and you can mark down that you were engaged in field service that month. So it's really eye opening that this is the continuation of the decline of the cult. Cults all around the world are on decline, by the way. Scientology, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, attendance is way, way down in all of these cults because people are finally waking up. There's documentaries, lots of documentaries out there on Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, that of course gives the other side of it, gives people the ability to say, well, I've heard the good, I've heard all the good from talking to this person, this Mormon or this Jehovah's Witness or the Scientologist, but I want to hear the bad now. I need to hear the critique. And we do this in everyday life, right? If I'm looking at a product that I want to buy on Amazon, I look at the reviews. The reviews are very important. What do most people think of this particular product? And the more reviews I see, the more likely I am to, and if they're good, majority of them, that the more likelihood I'm going to go with that particular product, right? If there's only 10 reviews on a product and another product has 2,000 reviews and most of them are positive, I'm going to go with the one that has more reviews. And people are approaching everything in life that way these days. So organized religion in general is on the decline, and cults especially, because of how rigid they are, the shunning techniques, the ability to try to control people. All of that is being really taken apart. And it wouldn't surprise me if some point in the near future they decide to do away with the shunning doctrine. It wouldn't surprise me at all eventually that they do that. That would be almost like a last ditch effort to try to repair all the damage that's been done to families and people. And, the blood guilt. I mean, I don't know how they're ever going to square that equation. A lot of ex-witnesses, people that left or were disfellowshipped, a lot of these people have committed suicide. It's really, really blood guilty on the hands of these elders, governing body. I mean, these are wicked, wicked men. Wicked. They are deplorable, disgusting. And now, oh, we're gonna change this. We're gonna say it's new light. It's complete ridiculousness for anybody to believe this. And I was in this cult for 33 years, grew up in it. Of course, I was indoctrinated in it, and eventually my reasoning mind woke up to it all. And I had to go through a difficult path to define that clarity. And that's hopefully this is something that is going to start waking people up. And that's the problem with cults, is you really can't wake somebody up that's in a cult by talking to them, trying to convince them, especially Jehovah's Witnesses. It's very difficult to do that. They have defense mechanisms in place psychologically. They have all these scriptures that they use to try to counteract arguments. It's very, very difficult to convince a Jehovah's Witness that their religion is a complete falsehood and a cult and not Bible based. they'll fight you all tooth and nail. So they have to come out on their own. They have to wake up themselves, and more as this governing body and the ruling class at a watchtower that are controlling the minds of people, eventually they're going to make a huge mistake. They're making these incremental mistakes where a lot of people are waking up. Oh, new light should be under scrutiny and criticized by everyone that has a reasoning brain. And I think more and more people are starting to wake up to this. More and more people are starting to look at what's on the internet, because the mentality is starting to change. We all want to read reviews. We want to read what's bad about something to counteract what we think is good. And that mindset is really starting to change a lot of the people within that cult. So I look at this as good news that they made this change, and it's going to hopefully wake some people up, especially people that have been in that cult for a long time. That feeling of, well, this is unfair. I've been putting in 50 hours a month for decades, and all of a sudden, all you got to do now is say you just went out in field service and check a box on these service reports. So it's completely ridiculous. But I thought it was worth mentioning this. I haven't done a video in a long time, and I wanted to bring this out. Again, I feel very positive that eventually what's going to end up happening is you're going to see them completely do a 180 on the shunning doctrine. I think that's coming in the next several years. I think the next 4 to 5 years. I don't like to predict things, but it just seems that that's what's going to happen. I think the decline of congregations, the decline of members is pretty dramatic. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. Financially, they continue to have issues and problems. Lawsuits are out there constantly. They're having to defend themselves legally. And I can't wait to see what happens in the near future. I think it's coming. I think eventually they will reverse course on the shunning doctrine, and when they do, you're going to see a lot more people leave, officially leave. Those PMOs, physically in, mentally out, people will decide, that's it, I'm out. That's what you're going to see happen eventually. So just my prediction. That's my thoughts on that, my commentary on that. Please leave some comments on the channel. I read all of them. Would love to hear what you guys think. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week, and I'll see you soon.